There's been a lot of things that have happened this week. It's actually been quite a very, very busy week. In that, it looks like that NATO is going to fall apart or be forcibly dismantled. Pam Bondi was removed. Thank goodness she's finally let go. And NASA had the Artemis 2 launch, which was quite interesting. The results from that launch were messy, and we'll get into that one. And then California, how good are your police officers? Well, sometimes these stories might scare you. This one especially might scare you, as apparently California police found a decomposing body in the back of one of their cruisers. He was a DUI suspect. Let's go ahead and get into it. Welcome to the Ripple Effect, where we as a channel go behind the headlines to show you the impacts on your life and your family. Now, the first story is NATO. There's a big conversation going on right now because as all of Europe aligns itself really with China, we can kind of see how finally we're pushing back really against China in all the different spheres. We're uniting with partners like Japan. They just had a big meeting. Japan is going to be investing billions into America, which is good. And it's not just an investment in America that makes that partnership valuable. Japan is also investing in its own military, which is technically doesn't have a military because of the agreements and blah, 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 blah. It has like a defense force, but they are investing into it, showing that they have a care and a concern for defending their area. Well, who would they defend against? Well, it's China. Taiwan also is stepping it up, ramping it up, because again, China has been showing extreme violence or a violence of intent of violence in the area. But while this whole hemisphere or section of the world is deciding and realizing that China is so crazy and terrible, the rest of the world just seems to be embracing open arms. And what's crazy is a lot of the motions and actions and movements that America has made, specifically Trump, in the Western Hemisphere have been to pull countries away from China, including Venezuela, which was like one of the biggest partners of China in the area, cutting that off, not allowing them to be involved there. Cuba as well. I mean, there's a lot of other ones that are down there that he has been involved in to remove their connection with China, to say this hemisphere is ours. You don't get to be here. You don't get to get the lithium. You don't get to get any of the natural resources. It belongs to the Western Hemisphere and us. Now, kind of like a Monroe Doctrine per se, right? Well, while Europe is seeing all this happen, we see the results of what they think of NATO with regards to Iran. In Iran, they don't want to be involved. The ones that are most affected by it are the Europeans, yet they still don't want to be involved in it at all. And I want to play all these games because why? Because they understand the strategicness of Iran and China. And they have been so overwhelmed by a lot of the most radical of the Muslims in coming into their countries that they are more insane than the actual Muslim countries in the area, like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and all these other ones. Now, Qatar is a little bit, out there, but the point is there's a lot of them out there, United Arab Emirates, that are going, we don't want to be as crazy as Iran. Obviously, I mean, we want stability in our area and realize that they need trade partners like America. Well, as Europe is doing this, it has come out that Spain has not only said that we cannot use our our ports or our bases that we co-share with them in their country for Iran, but we can't even move stuff through them that would be used for Iran. So they completely cut that off. Then they shut down the airspace over Spain, saying anything being used for Iran cannot be flown over Spain. Then Italy jumped on the bandwagon to do the same exact thing. Now, mind you, we have bases in a lot of these countries. And then France did the same thing. France added in Israel and said that even Israel cannot use their airspace for transporting stuff that would even be helpful to this effort. You can see an alignment where here we are in a situation, and I need to remind you, NATO countries, you guys are a bunch of stinking losers. Why? You have a treaty. The treaty says that if you are attacked, you are to go together and defend. Who got attacked unprovoked? Turkey. Turkey is a NATO ally. It got hit by Iran, and not a single one of those losers decided to jump in because they're so busy doing the political blame game on Trump and saying, well, this is your fault. Now, mind you, if we were to leave it as it is right now, we suffer politically, sure, at home. But Europe suffers detrimentally. Right now, they said that the cost of natural gas and so on and all the other stuff in Europe skyrocketed to like 70%. up. Crazy. How they don't understand this, I don't know. So they came to a conclusion, and honestly, I was watching a good review of the situation, and there's going to come a point here where NATO will dissolve, and it might be over Greenland. Why? Because Greenland specifically is strategic for two countries, Russia and China. And Russia has already got a foothold in Europe. It's coming into Europe more and more, right? And the only thing really holding it back is us. Our firepower going into Ukraine to stop it. And China is just stomping all over Europe and getting whatever it wants, deals wherever it wants, with all this tech going into all these places where it can get backdoors and so on. And all these trade routes right next to Greenland are just being used. Military trade routes, by the way, it's not just trade routes, but like military areas too. It's going to come to a point where we may actually have to take Greenland by force just because of the fact that we have to preserve ourselves because Europe can no longer do it. That's how crazy this has become. Now, Pam Bondi, in different news, has been fired. And thank goodness. We have wanted Pam Bondi to be fired for a long time. Ever since the whole binders thing where we had the binders and she came out and she was like, it's on my desk. It's on my desk. It's on my desk. And I have a letter here from AT&T. I think it's a bill or something. I have not opened it. You know, I've paid as much attention to this bill right here, which I'll pay it. I'm messing, as Pam Bondi did to the Epstein files on her desk before she handed them out to a bunch of people and made them look like fools. She is an entirely foolish person who should never have been in the position that she was in. And when you watch what she did when she went before Congress, it was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Kristi Noem too. And thank goodness they're both gone. They're both gone and see you later, right? Now, there's a court case that happened with the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire sued the American government over, the American federal government over how shadow banning and all that kind of stuff works on the tech online, right? And during Obama, and this happened, and it began with Obama, but then it ended up with Biden a lot more too, where I think they did this one before the Supreme Court in 2023 is when they put it through. Where basically we wanted openness from the government to acknowledge that they are no longer going to use third-party sources for whether something should be censored or not, because they were using a lot of these woke places to do that, and they have won. They have won so much that every year now the government is going to have to show by law proactively how it is not using these kind of sources for banning people, banning the voice and free speech. And this is an amazing, huge move, because during this time, we've seen the fight where they were fighting against conservatives, and it was a top-down federal mandated crunching of conservative news, and we've won. No longer will they be able to just curb stomp us like that. We get to fight back. And what's funny is freedom of speech, when controlled by a higher power, prevents the ones that need to have its stuff said and need to be defended the most, meaning like the poor people or, the helpless people. And in situations where the government's definitely heading one direction and has been for a very long time, which by that I mean woke and, liberal, it very soon shows the silent majority of the country, like what happened with Trump, finally had to stand up and vote him in to win where we're at right now. Now, good for him. Now, on a final note, I thought this was interesting. Oh, I got two more notes. Sorry. The one was NASA. So if you've ever seen the Apollo 13, I think it was, the movie or whatever, and there had like an air filter, and it's a round air filter going into a square spot because that's all they had on board, and the NASA scientists gather all around, and they're trying to figure out how to save the lives of these scientists on this kind of semi-failed mission because they need to make it work, otherwise they're going to die. They're not going to have enough oxygen, right? Well, something similar happened on the Artemis too, and it was kind of a messy situation. Apparently, the toilet, when they went to set it up, was not working. It's a 10-day cruise, and you can't have fluids floating around. Thankfully, the number 2 side of things apparently was working. It was the number 1 side of things, which I guess they take it, they clean it and filter it so you can have water again, so they calculate all that in. So major problem, as they're on a trajectory that they can't change. Meaning these people are taking off on a trajectory where they can't change anything until they're slingshot around the moon to come back. Well, so they literally had to collect all these NASA scientists together to help them get out of their messy situation, which they did. They figured out how to get in there and take apart the toilet and fix it. And so we were able to fix it. So thank goodness now the astronauts can pee in peace. Now, on a final note, it should be concerning to us when we hear stories like this. And it's interesting that it also happens in California. We constantly hear that police needs to be defunded and, all the kind of jargon of not supporting the police. But this one's quite interesting. Apparently, the California police found a decomposing body of a DUI suspect inside of a squad car at the station. I have some questions. Number one, I have a question of what. So I'll continue reading because who knows? Maybe they'll answer our questions. But it says police in Azusa, California, found this guy in one of their out-of-service patrol cars, but he apparently got in there himself after being released, which is, the stupidity of people is insane. So it says officers discovered the decomposing body of 37-year-old Eric Valencia in the backseat of an unlocked out-of-service patrol car parked right in the front of the Azusa Police Department station. He had been arrested on March 20th for a suspected DUI. So apparently he climbed into the unlocked SUV that was out of service and didn't realize that when you climb into the back, you're stuck in the back. Like you can't just get out of it, and it's got all the stuff. So he had been released on the March 27th after being held on suspicion of DUI and child endangerment, but apparently climbed, it says, following his release, surveillance video shows Valencia walking to the front of the station, looking around, and eventually entering the rear door of a patrol car number 37, which had been left unlocked for maintenance. Well, look, here's where his problems got worse. According to the authorities, the doors cannot be unlocked from the inside. He still had his phone on him and it was fully charged, so he could have called for help, but apparently didn't. The whole point behind this is, I've got so many questions. One, why do you leave a cop car in the front unlocked for, quote, maintenance, where anyone off the streets who was literally off the streets could walk in, but you don't lock the doors and you don't check? It's now April 3rd and that happened March 20th. Also, why was he not able to call anyone from the phone? That's something they didn't answer there. They said the family had questions about that. I'm like, I have questions about that too. Why didn't he call anyone? And I guess there's going to be a liability question, because is it a liability for the police department to have their cruisers unlocked where someone can just climb in and die? And how long does someone leave their unlocked cruiser out in the front for maintenance without going to check on it? This is what, like 2 weeks later? Over 2 weeks? Insane. There needs to be a lot of questions answered in regards to this, and I'm sure we'll see it coming up. So with that wonderful story, take that note and don't drink and drive, and also just don't drink in general, because it'll help. Have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe.